ready for you. So that's good that we got this figured out and you can hear each other.
Right. There we go. So that's perfect. That's live.
Recording in progress.
Boom. And we're live. Taylor, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. As we were just talking, kind of bitching about work and life and how difficult it can be. But
Yeah.
would you mind just kind of starting off and introducing folks listening?
Yeah, so I am Taylor, the vocalist of Solemnly Swear, and we just got done recording our and releasing our record, Cross My Heart and Hope to Fly.
Congrats
So
on that.
yeah, thanks, man. It's been a long time going. I'd say off and on for a solid like almost 4 years that we've been working on that record. So it's good to finally have that out and be able to like kind of do things like this and
Mm-hmm.
get to market it, I guess, and try to push it and like hopefully people enjoy it. We're really proud of these songs. I think that with a lot of the difficulties that we've had with this record, I'm pretty sure that like it's just a blessing in itself that it got to be released in the way that it is, and I'm very thankful for the crew that we had to work on it. So um, yeah, I just working on this record was kind of difficult at times, but it's I guess really nice to have that just now there as a like starting point for us to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No, and I'm glad you reached out to me. I'll admit I hadn't heard of you guys before that, your first
yeah.
message. And I've been jamming the album almost on damn near on repeat since then. I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Oh,
And I do,
really?
yeah, dude,
Oh,
it's
dude.
awesome. I like it, and I want to get in the album too. But I enjoy some of the samples you use on there for like your
Yeah.
intros and stuff. It kind of brings me back to that early kind of, I guess you call it, I don't know, it would be metalcore, kind of 2010, 2012 era. But your
Uh,
vocals and the instrumental side of the house very more modern, kind of sound and feel to it, and it's a cool blend in my opinion. And
I I would like to think that it's unique in itself. It has a lot of like old school roots to it. Yeah,
mhm.
I would agree with that.
But
So
before we get into all that, I just want to know how did you first get involved in music? You know, whether it was just kind of listening to it and like you found your jam, and then how did that lead over to I want to be a musician?
man, that's such a loaded question when it comes to me. Like we are a weird band. Like, and I say that I'm sure a lot of artists say that like I guess like okay, so like starting with like where how I got into like I guess music in general. I've always just been like a really big fan of anything that can kind of move me. I feel like I'm maybe an emotionally driven person in a lot of aspects, but some stuff like just affects me, I guess, in the audio spectrum. Um, and what I mean by that is anything that has like a high energy to it, I was just drawn to, or atmospheric, or had some type of like genuine emotion like to it. Um, I've been drawn to that and lyricism and such. When I first got into music, I'd say like my mother gave me uh, a Motley Crue CD, and I was so into that. Just it was a greatest hits CD, and just that was kind of what sparked it. Just like when I said like higher energy music, and my father was super into anything that had just I guess these are my words, but I guess kind of has like heart to it. He would he wasn't necessarily a singer, but he would sing things that he just genuinely enjoyed, and um, I always grew up around that kind of. We're not necessarily like a super musical family, I guess, but just growing up around these kind of factors, it just for some reason I latched onto that, and when I got into music, like I didn't know that like hard metal, I guess, existed necessarily. Like I guess like when you kind of look at it, like Motley Crue is like not necessarily, it's hair metal, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I kind of got into what I guess you consider like this vein of genre of metal in high school because I had no idea that like this kind of genre existed. And I've always wanted to be in a band, like in a real band, you know. Um, Growing up and when I got into high school, I didn't know what I wanted to necessarily do in life in general, and I kind of just went with things. And I was really into just having a good time with just my friends and stuff. But we got um, I joined what is the tennis team in my high school, and I got some friends that um, they had just introduced me to a band called The Devil Wears Prada, and I think at the time, yeah, solid. So I don't know if you can hear that, but I think that Mike, their vocalist, kind of influenced me a little bit, as like a precursor. So kind of with that, the people that I was around were really into that kind of style of music, and they introduced me to that, and I just it was like the Cambrian explosion, right? Like, so just so many things exploded, and this is like 2009, 2010, and so like we're listening to things like The Devil Wears Prada and Chelsea Grin, uh, and I fell in love with it. I couldn't get enough of it. It was just so interesting to me, and there was a whole I don't know what you would call it necessarily. I guess like a culture to it. There was like I call it the Warped Tour culture.
Yeah.
And I got so hooked on that as I was growing up. So um, I'd say like just that's kind of how it started, and I learned that like that was a style of singing, and you know I kind of heard of Slipknot before, and I kind of just deep dived hard into it. By my junior year, I was starting to do like vocals, and I didn't realize that that's what I was going to end up doing. But I just had started doing that, and progressively, I had started to do like high school bands, and I went to college, and I was in a band there, and uh, later moved up north of Indiana and had a band up there too, and just uh, learned the tricks of the trade, and uh, kind of honed my skills. And here we are today with Solemn. I call it Solemn as an abbreviation, but that's kind of how I started. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, kind of. But that's kind of how it started. Um, and I don't remember the latter half of your question, but I guess like you know progressively like where I'm at now, it just kind of I'd say like I take a little bit. I got so hooked on metalcore that um, for a while I had to like I guess try to find other genres to kind of like differentiate and kind of like give myself a refreshed look at music. So there was a spell right before we started really recording like the latter half of the record that I was listening to just anything but metalcore. So and by that I just kind of like very shoegazy, washed out guitars. So
I mean, when you said you started, by in high school, you're doing vocals and you're in bands in high school and college. I mean, did you ever have that light bulb, goes off, that aha moment? This is what I want to do, or was it just more the progressive, down the rabbit hole, if you will?
yeah, it was a little bit of both. So I think I had that moment of when it really clicked with me, that I felt like I had come into my own style and sound of how I kind of I don't know, it was something that like, hey, I actually might be somewhat decent at this, maybe. And I don't like to be cocky about like things I do, but I don't want to come off that way. But I guess like I don't want to have lead singer syndrome. I guess that's
Right.
The I think that there was a point where when I was in college and when I dropped out of college, because I never fully dived headfirst into anything that I was very passionate about, because I'm very passionate about this genre of things, and I genuinely I enjoy it and I love it, for better for worse. There's good and bad things about every kind of I guess group that you're in, I guess, but with the music industry and stuff like that. But I I'd say there was a moment where I was kind of like really into the idea of just being in a real band. Kind of like what I said earlier, just like I really wanted to be in a real band. And when I dropped out, I think that's when it kind of clicked with me that this is going to be something that's a part of my life forever. So,
Does it? I mean, do you ever feel like it's instead of doing something you enjoy because you enjoy the music and the art, you know, does it feel like a job, or do you worry about it ever feeling like it's a job, if you will?
um, I've definitely had, I guess, what some people can consider burnout, in some aspects because I've in, with even the conception and the finishing of this record.
Because you said
Um,
before we went online, you said it what 4 years to put this together.
yeah, it's 4 years. There was a conception where I thought about quitting, and just I had a lot of just things going on in my life, and I feel like this record kind of expresses that in some way. But I just had a lot of things going on in my life that maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe I want to change things about like where I'm headed. Just kind of stuff like that, I guess. Not to get like super deep and personal. I guess
We can
that's
go down whatever hole we want to. I mean,
well, whatever gets we end up going down. But God, man, I guess like there were moments where I definitely wanted to quit, and and that was hard and kind of heartbreaking. Um, I don't know. It's hard to say, like, because
did you
it
talk?
doesn't.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Did you
No, no,
talk?
no.
Were you able to talk yourself out of that, or were you able to lean on friends and family or the other guys in the band to kind of just
Um,
work through that mental
so I
rut?
guess this is kind of the first time I've expressed that publicly, but yeah, I guess like I leaned on other members of the band for that. They really like believed in this project, and it was because of me, I guess, that they had gotten into this project, and I kind of like you know for the lack of better words, like I guess kind of put this in a started motion. And so they believed in this record and they really enjoyed what they were doing and they didn't want to quit. There was also like talks about how um, it's just that you need to have enjoyment out of what you're doing. And so that's kind of how that kind of went down. Is like it doesn't necessarily feel like a job. I do get very overwhelmed with the social media aspect of things. I'm not necessarily somebody who's very tech savvy, as I've said before. It kind of stresses me out, but I love music and being able to do things like this, like talking to people and who genuinely like, I guess, understand the craft of it and want to know more about it, and just talking shop with about music and stuff like that. So I enjoy this a lot tremendously. Yeah. So, and my girlfriend, she was very helpful, I guess, into being like just being very supportive for me, saying that as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, it doesn't matter. You don't have to, have expectations for anything. Just as long as you're enjoying it, and that as I'm getting older, it kind of it was like I guess a light bulb of an aha moment of as long as I'm happy with it, that's all that matters. So
And just bring it back a little bit to the vocal side. I mean, you said you started off high school like before, but I mean, are you completely self-taught? Because I mean, whether you're singing in metalcore or opera or jazz, your vocal cords are a muscle. If you wreck
mm-hmm.
those, you're kind of up shit's creek. I mean, did you
Yeah.
reach out to anybody for tips, tricks, or take any lessons, anything like that?
When it came to scream vocals, no. I guess that's the kind of term I'm going to call it. The harsher tones. And a lot of people want to put labels on all that, and I think that we're still kind of discovering that maybe a little bit. I think we're getting more dialed in. I kind of do like I guess what they call false chording,
Mm-hmm. Which I
that kind
just
of
learned
stuff.
about a few months ago, or earlier this year, last year. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I had another guy
yeah,
tell me.
because yeah, well, it's interesting to me because like a lot of the vocalists that I listen to, they do more of like I guess that fry style. Um, and I'm super into that power driven, like very. It's impressive to me. Like they may not have the range, but they have just a very consistent power driven, and they are able to get so many syllables and notes out that I think that's impressive to me. And I'm not like that, and I didn't sound like that when I first started, and it just kind of was something that I kind of went into, just jumped in it, cannonball, whatever doesn't hurt and kind of sounds good to my ears and flows right. And it wasn't necessarily anything that I looked up or like, you see now on YouTube all these like things like how to do this, like how to scream. That never was a thing for me. I have always, I guess, been self-taught. Yeah.
Have you? I mean, has there ever been a point where maybe you felt yourself pushing too far? I mean, what's the? I mean, have you had to
So
take a break and recover from that?
I know about my limit of, I guess, I can feel where, like you said, it's a muscle. You could be doing everything right from just the people I've been around and the things I've seen. Like you can do everything right and still kind of hurt yourself. So it's something you have to be very cautious about and do every precautionary measure possible that you can control. That's how I've been able to maneuver around this and navigate through the art form. But it's something that I'd say I can do a very um, vast amount of it, but I know, I guess like recording this record, I did reach my limit on some studio dates that I wasn't necessarily done. I had more drive in me, but I knew that I shouldn't push it because I will be a little bit more hoarse than I should normally be. So, um, yeah, it's something that I want to be able to have a longevity with it as much as I can because this is something I do enjoy. And it is a creative outlet for me. So, um, it's they have hit walls. And I know that, hey, this doesn't feel right. I should probably stop. And thankfully I've not had any problems, but I'm not like a lot of other people who are touring every day. So.
Right. And
I've never.
is it just? Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Is it just you doing vocals on the album? Because listening to it, I mean, you have some very clean, soft side, but then you also hit some really wicked fucking lows and mids. And the growls on there, like first time I was listening to the album, the first time, I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. It has that, like I was saying before, that 2010 vibe, and then all of a sudden you hit those lows. It's like, where the fuck did that come from?
It just really just depends on what track you're talking about because we have. I've kind of nicknamed it the creature feature. There's so many talented artists that have been in the process of helping with this band in general. We have three. This is pretty much core members, and we are looking for a guitar player. Side note, we can maybe get into that later. But so I guess the only cleans that I have done on this record, and it's weird for me to say cleans because that's not something I've ever done. I've always enjoyed cleans, and I think that I listen to bands like Micro Relocate and Outline Color and stuff like that. Like they have a very huge contrast of vocal styles. I mean, you have again like that 2010 style, Woe Is Me, and even Prada does have that kind of contrast. But Sink My Teeth is the only track that I am clean singing on. So that is all me. That's the only, that's all me. As far as like features, we have Chris who does the cleans on Chris Acosta. He is a really amazing vocalist and a huge friend of mine. He did the cleans on Cross. Shout out to him and his band Rivers. Just he did the cleans there. And there was a brief moment where Colin Slow, a friend of mine as well, he was in the band and did the cleans on Vanquish, that little clean section, and the chorus in Grow. And he also, I believe, he wrote most of the instrumentation, because Chris had emailed me, and we kind of emailed back and forth, and we were kind of like writing riffs and stuff like that together and like talking about it. And he had a bassist, and then Colin, I think, wrote the rest of the what you hear as Grow Now. There was a precursor to that, but Colin was a huge impact on Grow. So he's the other clean vocalist, or did cleans on this record.
And just to wind things back a little bit of about 4 years ago, I mean, how did everybody meet, and how did that turn into what is now Solemnly Swear?
Oh man. So I used to work up north in Indiana, and just so, well, I have to backtrack a little bit. So I met Thomas in college, and we were in a college band together. Just did gigs here and there, and from anywhere from Indianapolis to like Evansville, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And he and I like really enjoyed each other's capabilities, I think, and he was always the drummer for everything that I had like kind of done off and on ever since then. And a phenomenal artist, and I actually feel like I'm outclassed in every aspect of the other musicians that are in this project. It's crazy. They are super talented. I met Thomas in college, and he's always somebody that was willing to jump on anything that I had done, and very thankful for that. And when I worked up north, I met Trevor. Trevor is the synth and keys on all of the record, and he approaches music in a very odd way, and it's just something that like I had briefly kind of explored as far as like musical tastes around that time that I was kind of like taking a break from like just metal, and he approaches stuff in such a unique way, and he's super into the electronic side of things. And I really wanted him to help, I guess, give a depth to our sound. And there was a moment where I heard something he had done on his solo project, and I wanted him to be a part of the group. So I messaged him and got a hold of him, and basically asked him, and he was down. So that was kind of a done deal, because he had seen, we had released a version of Vanquish that is our music video that he is unfortunately not a part of, but this is before he was in the band. And he saw the potential, I think, and really enjoyed what we were doing, and he wanted to be a part of it. So very thankful that he jumped on board, and when he did, and he helped finish the record, and I attribute a lot of what we have to him too. So he kind of has this approach of like Mick Gordon, I don't know if you know the Doom soundtrack.
Yeah,
Stuff like that. He has that background and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool and interesting, and I think that we're headed into a music explosion, another Cambrian explosion analogy, in that direction as well, when it comes to like intense music. And I had also met our producer, who is also does a lot of the guitar playing, along with Colin. Wyatt Roberts is the producer, and Colin. I met them at the same place that I met Trevor, and we all worked together and stuff like that in different departments, and just kind of, I don't know, everything kind of meshed together, and the end result was this record, really.
So, I mean, how did you guys come up with the band name? I mean, were you just throwing shit against the wall and see what sticks, or did you have that idea already there and just had to mold it out?
So when it came to this band, conceptually, I had a lot going on in my life, and I really wanted to. I'm trying to think of the words. So I wanted to come up with this philosophy-esque name, just an ideology that I wanted this band to be about, and something that I really felt like I kind of could stand behind. And I wanted to really have a message with the name and have it mean something instead of it just be, oh, we thought this sounded cool. I don't know. I take myself too seriously, maybe. Um, but um, but Solemnly Swear is I named it after a song from an artist that I genuinely enjoy, and the song is, I believe, to be directly named after the Harry Potter quote. I believe. Don't quote me, but I believe. And I didn't know that necessarily. I saw what the definitions of the words meant, and to me, I wanted to make a promise to myself to never give up on myself. Genuinely give myself an honest assessment of where I was at in life, and be true to myself, and be honest about what I wanted and where I was going. And I think that name really captured it. Just swearing that I'm not going to give up on myself. So, and that's kind of how this name came to fruition.
So when did you start writing songs together and then put the name, or did you have the name in place and then all right, cool, let's start hammering out an album?
Interestingness about that, I guess. If that's not even a word.
It's the
The
internet. We
whole
can make up shit.
yeah, just make up anything, right? With we started writing discount drugs, with myself and just Wyatt, the producer, and he kind of made a hook with that, and I was kind of throwing together just these lyrics that I had already pre-written, and kind of forming them and putting them into a way that they made sense for the song. And that's actually how all the songs on this record are. The songs were kind of written instrumentally with a feeling in mind and what they were kind of about, but loosely. And then I had a catalog of lyrics and poems that I've written that I wanted to have a song written about, and it's kind of formulaically just making a flow with those and calculating that together. But we were in the middle of writing Discount, and I couldn't think of anything that really at the time. And I was in Wyatt's studio, and I asked him what he thought of that, because, and I had it in my head, like, this is what it means to me. And he agreed that that was a solid name, and we kind of looked up other avenues of like search engines, like making sure that wasn't somebody else's band name, and at that time we didn't see anything, so that was kind of how we came up with that name.
And I imagine it's got to be difficult. Like you said, you're searching for names. And I know way too many people in the beer industry, and that's the number one thing is that trying to create a new beer name, what's not already copyrighted and such. Is it the same way? I mean, there seems to be more with the internet. There seems to be more and more bands coming out because it's much more accessible to get music out into the world.
Right. I mean, you have independent artists releasing records all the time, right? So we just tried to avoid using anybody else's already made titles. I'm not sure all the legality behind all that. That's something that we genuinely, like, we didn't want to step on anybody's toes or anything. And there are bands all the time that have the same name, but they have, their state or what region they're from around the globe, so next to their name. And I don't necessarily know, as I just assume, like, just don't be rude about it. We've and that's we genuinely liked the name and we wanted to use it, and so far we have, I think everything's okay with it. So
So, back in I want to say end of October, early November, something like that. August Burns Red. My buddy Brandon Watson, his solo project Misery's End, and another band I can't remember who, all on the same day released a song called Vengeance.
oh,
So
okay.
I was giving him a little bit of shit because, of course, he's the new. It was his first EP that he ever released, and here's these two heavyweight bands also dropping it. I'm
Already.
like, yeah, it's like, oh, at least you can just ride the hashtag.
Yeah, yeah, you can just ride the hashtag and maybe somebody will find your stuff in
Right.
that mix. Yeah. Um yeah, that kind of stinks at the same time too. That hasn't necessarily happened to me. And I hate that for him. That stinks. Um but uh we were watching actually like kind of when we should release the record, and a lot of bands kind of release things through the fall, and I think with the pandemic, a lot of bands have been in the studio because they haven't been able to tour live, and so you're getting a little bit more releases than what is normal, I guess, quote unquote normal, um, for the music industry. So maybe we were kind of looking at like, well, let's do a November drop, and that kind of worked out. We didn't know how many other artists were trying to drop something on that specific day, but we dropped it and it seemed to work out. And I don't think I've found any other bands necessarily that have the same like titles of any of our tracks, so that's good. But yeah, that's that's got to be rough, man.
That's why I'm on this side of the house. I'll just stay with the podcast world. That and nobody ever wants to hear me sing. It's just better for them that way.
Oh, well, maybe in a future solemn record we can make that
You
happen.
I'm professional in my car when I'm by myself or in the shower. That's about
There
it.
you go. Behind the steering
Right.
wheel singing. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for you, you said you had a bunch of songs and or lyrics and poems already written out. I mean, what's that? What's the process like for you when you're putting together?
I kind of avoid, well, I kind of avoid like trying to write like specifically like super specific things. I try to make things a very artistic way of like how I'm feeling and like just things that I see happening around me and just in the world, I guess. It's one of those things where this is kind of like a topic that's particularly, um, I guess, like particularly like um, close to my thoughts on the matter, I guess, maybe. Because like a lot of this whole record's about like just personal things, just like personal, um, yeah, just personal things in general. But um, I kind of I don't know, my brain works in a weird way, I guess. I don't know how many other people necessarily like. There's probably a lot, but I kind of think of these like flow hooks, in a weird way. But I kind of get like a groove in my head necessarily, and I kind of like try to put into words in a poetic way of what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, and that's kind of how I come up with these, um, about the specific topic, and that's kind of how I come up with, the lyrics to what I have. Usually, I'm trying to, and I have in mind like kind of what I think the chorus should say and what the intro should say and the verses and such. So there is some, I guess, method to it. It's not all just random words, and I try to think of like rhyming patterns and such when it comes to that. But for me, it's just a like a free style poem amalgamation of just what I have about a certain topic. So
And
that's kind of how it starts.
when you have once, I mean, so you have all these lyrics and everything written up already, and are you just going through and listening to what the other guys put together instrumentally and just trying to figure out what do you feel works best? I mean,
A lot of time, yeah. A lot of time for a couple of tracks on this record, it was like that. I know I kind of pitched to them what I think, like what I kind of think the record needed or needs, the song needs in general, how I feel about what where to put the song or where I think it should fall, and um, I kind of give examples of what I think should be going on, or of that kind of caliber maybe, and they kind of write around that mood and that feeling, or I use this word like cinematic in a way, and I think that Cross kind of has that. We were kind of wanting to write a cinematically big song, something that sounded epic, right? Because we have this very driven song that's, I would say, not necessarily ballady, but like power metal-y in a way, for Vanquish. Um, just these songs are just inspired of just a feeling, or some type of like I guess like a very specific mindset maybe. So that's kind of like, this is what the song's about, and this is kind of what I was thinking for it, and that's kind of how I pitch it, and then they come up with something, and we kind of vote on that, and that's how it moves forward. So
Any speed bumps in the along the way with that? I mean, because you get five, six people in a room, that's five, six egos with five, six
yeah,
different artistic views
yeah,
on something.
yeah. And that's a classical story for any band, I guess. But um, I kind of come up with the concepts, and really it's been, we say, like hit or miss on something, and kind of say what we think and feel about the certain like track or what it needs, and we kind of let it be its own thing and kind of develop, and we kind of work it out whether or not we think it fits or not. Because right now it's myself, Trevor, and Thomas, that really kind of like orchestrate everything together. So we have, I guess, like differences on what we think, how the track should necessarily go. And that's we've had, like, meetings in general about what we want out of it and what we think should happen. Um, I think we've navigated through that fairly well, though. So
Has the whole process, I mean, for you individually and together, has it changed over, from 4 years ago to leading up to putting the final project together?
yes, yes. Oh my gosh, this was so, there's so many moving parts and pieces, and now I think we've got it more solidified on what we're going to do is navigating through it. Like I said before, we don't have a guitar player, so we kind of outsource that and kind of have ghostwriting help and stuff like that. And again, we have our producer Wyatt, who's helped tremendously with that at least to fill that slot. But um, the songwriting process kind of started with me just heading into the studio, and we're going to keep working, hammering stuff out, and see what fits, what doesn't. We're going to, and that was kind of like, that was our version of throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what stuck. And when we got a couple of songs underneath our catalog, I guess we started honing it in, like what we think works and what doesn't. Songwriting process is, we'll kind of like get a riff, or Trevor will come up with like some synth keys and have like a song structure in mind, and I'll kind of say like we need more of this section, or not, and we kind of build it from there, all via like online, and kind of send Dropbox stuff to each other, and Google Drive files, and it's kind of started with that, and then Thomas will put his drums to it, and then I go in and I record. So I'd love to be able to someday like get all of us in one room. We all live in separate cities, so that's why we did everything that way, and plus the pandemic and stuff like that. So it was kind of hard to orchestrate through that. Um, but we made it happen, and we made it work. I think that this record wouldn't have turned out this way if it weren't for that. So I think that this is such a unique record in general, because we've had so many different moving parts, and I think that that's why you get so many different like genre flares in different spots. I don't know if you feel that way, but I do. I think that there's quite a bit of different like diversity with all these songs.
Excuse me. Yeah, I can definitely hear the diversity, but I think as like you look at each song individually, and you weren't attached to no track label, no band name or anything like that, it sounds really good. But then you put it together as an album, it still flows together, and you can tell it's still the same artist, the same group together, but it's just different. It's like a box of chocolates, if you will, to go
Mm-hmm.
back to Forrest
Yep.
Gump.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, I think you're right. I think that there's different flares and different flavors that go along with these boxes of chocolates. I mean, you can get a specific brand of chocolates that has a diversity of what they have in the box, and um, we had idea like we every song is just all over the place as far as like inspirations and ideas of what we wanted, and just kind of like we wanted to be able to be not boxed into a specific sound or genre necessarily. We wanted to have like, yeah, we wanted to be able to have a ribbon over it and say this is solemn, right? And that I'm really glad that you feel that way, because we 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 worked really hard on that. And we didn't want to have like just left field songs, definitely. So we were kind of worried that, not necessarily worried, me, I would say the word worry for myself, but I was kind of interested to see how a lot of people would take it, because I think that it's kind of, yes, we have the umbrella of metalcore, but there's a little bit of everything in that record. So.
It seems, I don't know if it's this time age tradition of more professional media than myself. Always, or maybe it was just the radio, where the single goal going back to the 50s was to make a song that's going to make it on the radio that can people listen to, and the average listener span is like 2.5, 3 minutes, something like that. I think the studies used to be.
Yeah.
But everybody
Yeah.
had to fit in this box of you
Right.
are this genre.
Yep.
Metallica is thrash metal. They can't do anything but thrash metal. But then they come out with Nothing Else Matters, which is nothing like anything
Yeah.
that they had before that. And now here we are in a time where talking to more and more artists is that they don't want to be put in this little box. I mean, do you
Right.
worry about that? If somebody say some schmuck with a microphone on a podcast goes, "Yep, this is a metalcore band. This is what they do," and then people then that's their
Associate.
image of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't necessarily, I guess, worry about it. I guess that could be a problem. I've thought about it before. Um Ultimately, yes, we have a very heavy rooted metal core even background. Just that DIY hardcore venues style. Those are my words, I guess, for it. But I think that I think the music will speak for itself. I kind of enjoy, not to name drop, I guess, but like what Bring Me the Horizon did. They don't want to do the same album every single time, and I get that. I get that, because I mean, not everybody has the same mood all the time. Not everybody has the same inspirations on the same genre every time. So, and I think that kind of speaks to musicianship. I think that speaks to, I guess, like what you're feeling at the time, what you're ready to listen to, what you don't want to listen to. Like, because there are times where people are in different moods and they want to listen to different things, and I think that people who come from different like genre backgrounds, I guess, could listen to us, and I think that they could find at least something in one track that they kind of enjoy or understand like where it came from. Because we have a song that I think is kind of industrial based, so I think some people who are like industrial music could listen to that and be like, yeah, they're a metalcore band, but there's some influence here. So I think the music could speak for itself on the record, of what we're doing, or what we're at least trying to attempt to do. Um, yeah, that's my take on it.
But what's the response been like? Since you've dropped the album, like friends, family, the internet collective, if you will.
The collective. Um, I mean, so far it did as expected. I think when we're coming right out of the gate with this is our first record, we've been kind of off and on social media and trying to hone in everything that we wanted to do and what this was about. And I'd say like we don't have like nearly as many people as we probably like originally thought, but I think that it's still growing. It's something that we can't necessarily put um, uh, our I guess our a grasp on like where it actually is because with us being like just brand new right off of the first record release, we don't necessarily have a following, I guess. So, and that's kind of something that we've looked at as far as like playing live and stuff like that and how the future is going to be. We really we put a lot into it and we just hope people like it. It's not something that we were like uh, super worried with like how every person's going to perceive it maybe, but I don't know. I feel like we did what we wanted to do and we're happy with what the end result was. And as far as like fans go, we've had a couple people message us and say like, hey, you actually did it, like that's awesome, just friends and stuff like that. And we're hoping that more people, the more time goes on, will listen to it.
So how do you and the rest of the guys feel now that the album's complete? It's out there. You've released it into the wild, if you will.
Into the wild, yeah. Yeah, it has been released. Yeah,
Sense of relief, or
it is. I think it's like a sense of accomplishment. I feel like I live my life now as I'm getting older, kind of like accomplishments of things, kind of like maybe a sense of pride, I guess. It's like a wow, we did that, and I think that's really cool. Not a lot of people get to do that, and I think we should take that as we shouldn't take that for granted. Um, and it is, I guess, relief, but we just did it because we wanted to, and we genuinely love the craft, and just it's a part of who we are, and we're just happy to be able to do it. We haven't necessarily had a meeting since the release of it necessarily, like the day before, um, but the numbers on it, it's something that like we're not gonna necessarily like obsess over and like have our hair fall out over it, but um, we're just happy to be able to do it in general. And I think the more time goes on, I think the more um, accessible people will be able to find it. Accessible it'll be. So, yeah.
and plans on album 2 in the works yet, or still trying to take some time off and breathe a little bit?
We wanted to breathe a little bit for sure. We wanted to breathe. We were talking like like Trevor has been talking to me, and we've got something in the works as that he's been working on that he's wanted to do with our tracks and kind of put more emphasis on certain things in the tracks that um, almost like a reimagined thing. So I'm not necessarily gonna spill too much of the beans, but we've been talking about doing stuff like that. There are more releases coming. As far as record 2, we're not necessarily ready, but we would like to do another one. I think we'd like to probably play out live a couple of shows at least. We were talking about the realisticness of us being on tour is we still need to find a guitar player to at least play live with us. So we're still in the market. We're having someone to at least play live with us if they're willing, and kind of work out how that's gonna look in the future. I'd say we'll probably slowly accumulate the tracks for that, but that's gonna just come with time. We don't necessarily have a release date in mind or anything like that, but we have more of an idea of like how each other like flow as far as work and um, kind of how we work together. So I think that there may be a little bit better of a flow of cohesion and maybe take a little bit less time for how things work and when it gets released and stuff like that. And from the starting point, it may not take 4 years this time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Well, any plans on? Have you started to look at venues or maybe opening some shows up for other bands and stuff in your area or areas since you're spread out?
Yeah. Oh, we just started. We've just started that. We kind of want to make it like, I guess, something that, with all of our different work schedules, we want to make it easy for everybody and not make it like, somebody has to drive 3 hours just to get to the other side of the states.
Get
And
paid $5 and
right, right. It's not something that is necessarily feasible to, I guess, say, we could make it work, I guess, to like play anywhere, but it's going to have to be working that out and making sure that we have the ability to do it. So that's kind of where we are with that.
have you guys started to talk and kind of, kind of plan out, hey, if we play a show in, city A, how
Yeah.
are we going to do this logistically?
So logistically, we have kind of figured out what it would take, and that's what we're actually in the middle of doing currently. I think we still don't want to necessarily solidify any dates, but we're talking to venues and getting a relationship with certain like contacts for that and promoters, and we really just need to get our set lineup, our lineup
Right.
solidified first. But if we really wanted to play, we could make it happen. It's just being very thorough about it because we want to make sure it's possible. We don't want to just bite off more than we can chew. Um, there are events that we've kind of been asked to play, and I think we're kind of working that out, what it's going to realistically be. Nothing's solidified yet either, nothing like set in stone. But we're in that. That's literally what we're in the middle of doing currently. So it's just getting a solid lineup together is the first step of that.
Well, and from now, more importantly, where can people find you on social media if they want to follow along the band, and where, of course, where can they find Cross My Heart in Hope to Fly? Excuse me.
You can find our music, I think, anywhere on any platform now. Not sure about, like, I think Deezer. I'm not sure about that one, but I know that we are on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Um, it, Spotify is the main component. I think that most of our listeners are at currently. But you can find us on YouTube and anywhere else. I believe it's out everywhere it should be. So we've got our handles might be a little bit spread out, but you should be able to find us under anything that says Solemnly Swear official music. So
Awesome.
that's our handle.
One last question for you.
Okay.
If there's individual or a band listening and they're where you were 4 years ago with putting together their first tracks and working on their first EP or album, what advice would you offer up to them?
Man. Oh man. Be patient. Genuinely give yourself some time to let the music and everything that you're working on settle, and be very thorough in how you approach it. Give yourself the ability to sit on it and give yourself some time to let it kind of stir. Um, but don't fester on things and nitpick it to the point where there's a fine balance there. But I'd say initially give yourself some time to absorb what's happening with it. So that is my advice.
Awesome. Thank you again for taking the time to do this. And when you
Yeah.
guys when you get a new release or album out, whatever the case may be, by all means, let's get you back on the show. It'd be cool to talk to everybody behind the project.
Yeah. We hopefully we can make that happen. We may not all be in the same necessarily the same room, but we could try to make something like that happen. I'm sure that the other guys would be okay with that.
That, and if you were to happen to come play a show in St. Paul, Minnesota at Amsterdam, I believe it's Bar and Hall, you should definitely do that and could do something in person.
Yeah. All I need is the contact info and again solidify our lineup.
I keep telling people to
So
play shows there. I really got to call the bar and be like, hey, who do I who do I send to talk to you?
Well, when you find out, let me know.
Right.
We'll find out how that would unfold.
Right.
So
Well, thanks again, man. I appreciate it. If you just want to hang out for a bit and we can talk about the logistics. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week. I will catch you next time.